Okay, we're continuing with this book here, The Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by Meet Pete Rogers, going in alphabetical order. We're doing intelligence quotes. And just so you know, the book and the quotes I give here are not exactly the same. There's more quotes in the word processor document that I use to make these videos than there is in the book. The book's got a lot of pages. It's got about 700 pages, but there's also sometimes quotes that don't really fit into a theme. I try each time I give one of these little nighttime things to have at least some semblance of a theme. So tonight I'm going to talk about intelligence quotes, about IQ. I had a couple quotes before this, but they were just sort of little brief, when a guy only has one quote, a lot of times I'll just skip that person. So anyways, intelligence quotes. What do we do all day long? We read the world. Marco Iacoboni. Okay, so the point is, that's just one little quote about reading the world, what we need to learn. But I'm going to go really into IQ here more than what you're used to. A couple brief introductory quotes. Steve Irwin, the great crocodile expert zoologist guy who died, but I love the guy. He said, "I believe that all education is about being excited about something. Seeing passion and enthusiasm helps push an educational message." So his old zoo shows were great. Jeff Hawkins, prediction is the primary function of the neocortex and the foundation of intelligence. Yeah, we learn so we can better understand the world and make predictions. Okay, Jeff Hawkins, when the brain builds a model of the world, everything has a location relative to everything else. And that's analogous to the idea that everything we learn, everything we know is based on comparing it to something else through analogies, like the Hofstadter theory. And others have said that, Aristotle said something like that. So did Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer. Jeff Hawkins, location is a framework for intelligence and cortical computation. Alfred North Whitehead, it takes an extraordinary intelligence to contemplate the obvious. Okay, yeah, regular people, they don't pay attention, but it's the basic questions that you build on to construct an understanding of something. Alfred North Whitehead, intelligence is quickness to apprehend. Intelligence is distinct from ability. Ability is the capacity to act wisely on the thing apprehended. Okay, it's a little bit like saying wisdom. All right, now we're going to get into IQ quotes, okay? And there's really nothing controversial about this. All of this stuff is well known. People try to pretend that IQ is controversial. It's actually not. And the other thing they'll try to tell you, all the college professors, oh, you can't change it. That's completely untrue, okay? SAT and ACT tests are IQ tests, okay? They try to pretend they're not, but they are, okay? And your scores on those things are the best predictor of how you're going to do in college. And for example, I took the SAT test as a junior, didn't do as well as I would have liked, but I didn't care. I went out the night before. And then, my senior year, when I got injured in wrestling, I didn't know if I was going to be able to compete in wrestling ever again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to become serious about school. So I bought the book to study on my own. I retook it a couple times. I increased my score about 270, 300 points. I was also jealous of these guys on the cross-country team who had higher scores than me. And so I was pissed off. I wanted to do better on it. But the point was, that's a giant improvement. And I just studied on my own. There's no biological change in my brain. I just studied I want to do well. So in a sense, though, it predicted my desire to do well in school. And that's an indicator of likelihood of success. So it's valid. So some indicators that a person has a high IQ. They've got a good vocabulary. They like to read. They like to talk about ideas. They're open-minded when they talk about ideas. They're mentally flexible. They can grasp the nuance of a situation, understand things quickly. They can write well. They enjoy being alone, solitude, to read. They read in a wide range of area. They read with a sense of purpose to understand something. They're funny or clever. They have a high curiosity in their field of interest, or they do something creative. Those are all signs of a person with a real high IQ. Okay, some quotes on IQ. The more buttons on a person's shirt that are done, the higher the IQ. Okay, that's just nonsense. Monkeys don't live in cold climates because they're not adapted to it and they're not smart enough to adapt. Chimpanzees are too stupid to count on their fingers. Yeah, they've got like 1/3 the amount of cerebral cortex that humans do. They're not even close to being like humans intellectually. Chimpanzees are too stupid to learn sign language. Okay. With practice, training, and method, we can increase our attention, our memory, our judgment, and become more intelligent. Yeah, that's Alfred Binet. He invented the IQ test, so he'll tell you the truth. Whereas these BS artists, Jordan Peterson included, they try to tell you you can't improve IQ. That's BS. Then they keep redefining it to say that you can't improve it. Well, any type of IQ test, you can learn about that IQ test and you can improve on it. Okay, here's an anonymous quote. Women's Lib had the goal to get women out of the house so kids could be sent to school younger and brainwashed. Getting women to work also doubled the number of workers and thus lowered salaries. Encouraging more women to go to college and grad school has the paradoxical effect of lowering the IQ of the population. The reason is all these higher IQ women that keep on going to college or grad school, they have fewer children. And also this feminism stuff gets them to value their career over family. So the net result is that the less intelligent women have more babies, the smarter women have fewer babies, and the population as a whole gets dumber and dumber. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to share with you some quotes from this guy, Jeffrey Miller, who's a psychologist, IQ expert. Okay, he says, an Ivy League undergraduate diploma is a very expensive IQ guarantee. One could obtain a similar type of guarantee from a 2-hour test. And that's actually true. Like I said, the pre-med education is an absolute joke. Calculus, physics, it's irrelevant to medicine. And about 90% of what they teach in organic chemistry is irrelevant. About 80% of what they teach in biology is irrelevant. It really is. I say that based on deep familiarity with these subjects. So, you know, what you're really doing is you're kind of wasting the student's time if you want to produce a doctor or somebody to help take care of disease. That's why somebody can just watch these videos on the internet and know as much as a doctor about most subjects. Okay, there's exceptions, of course. You're not going to learn surgery that fast. Okay, credentialism explains the 300 diploma mills. Yeah, because everybody wants to see a diploma. These awards, BAs, MBAs, or PhDs within 7 days on the basis of life and work experience to get a degree for what you already know with no admission requirements, attendance classes, essays, or tests, diploma mills. Okay, here's a former Harvard president from 1869 to 1909. He admitted, a problem with this view that college is necessary for education is that there are much more efficient ways to learn career-relevant skills and facts through reading books, watching documentaries, talking with experts, and finding mentors. You know what? That quote seems bogus because he was Harvard president to 1909. There weren't any documentaries back then. I'll have to double check that quote. Okay, that's ridiculous. All right, now we're getting back to Jeffrey Miller. I probably added that word in. That don't make sense. One could get a first class education from a shelf of books 5 feet long as it was the right 5 feet, such as the 50 volumes of Harvard classics that he had edited. So I guess Jeffrey Miller was talking about him. Okay, the massive rise of homeschooling. This comes from Jeffrey Miller's book it's called Spent, about IQs. The massive rise of homeschooling shows that many parents have come to realize that learning, especially at the high school and below level, need not depend on credential schools. Homeschool kids learn a lot better than grade school and public school kids do. Okay, the SAT test is an IQ test that pretends it's not an IQ test. Yeah, that's a great line. The SAT test is an IQ test that pretends it's not an IQ test. A college degree is an IQ guarantee that pretends it's not an IQ guarantee. The value-added view suggests school is necessary for the student's intellectual development. The credential view suggests you should get your credentials. The warehouse view suggests that the public schools are just to get the kids out of the home so they can be brainwashed and send their moms into the workforce. The conformist view contends that school is needed to socialize children, to pacify them, to make them accept being wage slaves. Okay, Jeffrey Miller. Okay, let's actually get to see the next one. Who's given this one? Okay, general intelligence is by far the best predictor of academic achievement in college. The more accurate standardized tests are at measuring general intelligence, the more biased they look across groups. Okay, so the bigger the difference there is going to be between different ethnic groups, the sexes, and the financial classes, you know, upper middle class, poor people, etc. And that's just the way it is, all right? And I would say, you know, who does well in school is not just intelligence, because I saw at Stanford there were some really bright guys who just weren't that motivated. They were smoking pot or something, and they didn't do that well in school. And I saw other guys, you know, like this one guy named Martin. He wanted to go work in his dad's law firm when he grew up, and man, he was such a maniac for studying, but he wasn't that bright. Okay, the closer a mental test comes to measure general intelligence, the closer it comes to measuring general health and fitness. Oh, people used to criticize that, but they found out if the people are smarter, they're more likely to be healthy. Yeah, they're more likely to pay attention to taking care of their health. There's exceptions, of course, but that's generally true. Mountains of research have shown this to be correct. Okay, here's a good line by Miller. He says, "Is it an accident that the researchers at the most expensive elite IQ screening schools tend to be the most skeptical of IQ tests. I think not. Yeah, Harvard doesn't want to admit that its diploma is just a guarantee. At least it used to be a guarantee the person has a high IQ, because then why go? If you just have a high SAT score, then you would know that that was the same thing, basically. Okay. Universities offer costly, slow, unreliable intelligence indicating product that competes directly with a cheap, fast, more reliable IQ test. So he's saying that an IQ test is more reliable than a Harvard degree. And that's actually true nowadays, because I remember back when I was at Stanford, a lot of the athletes, they would take classes that were called things like Rocks for Jocks or communications. And those are ways to help athletes get good grades and at least pass who really didn't have much academic ability. And there was a pretty big difference between the academic ability of the serious students and guys like the football players. Okay, the wrestlers were pretty smart. Wrestling, I think, makes you smart because it's a really strategic thing once you get good at it. Harvard and Yale sell nicely printed pieces of paper called degrees that cost about $160,000 a piece. Harvard is basically an IQ guarantee. The elite universities do not want to be undercut by competitors. They do not want their expensive IQ warranties to suffer competition from a cheap, fast IQ test, which would commoditize the intelligence display market and drive down their costs. Therefore, elite universities have a hypocritical love-hate relationship with IQ tests. So they choose their students, at least they used to, based on an IQ test like SAT, ACT, to guarantee that their IQ warranty has validity, but then they pretend that it doesn't. Okay. All right, and then the makers of the SAT test will say, oh no, it's not an IQ test, because they don't want, to piss off the Ivy Leagues. Okay, general intelligence correlates positively with overall brain size, speed of performing basic sensory motor tasks, physical health, human longevity, semen quality, mental health, romantic attractiveness for long-term relationships, general intelligence, and brain size. They are all highly heritable. Okay, general intelligence, also known as IQ, general cognitive ability, or G factor, is a way of quantifying intelligence's variability amongst people. Okay, let me get to the rest of this quote, because this might be Jordan Peterson. No, it's still Jeffrey Miller. Okay. He says, it is the best established, most predictive, most heritable mental trait ever discovered in psychology. Whether measured with formal IQ tests or assessed through informal conversations and observations, intelligence predicts objective performance and learning ability across all important life domains that show reliable individual differences. Yeah, and Jordan Peterson had said, and he's an expert on personality testing and IQ testing, he says, if you don't want to accept IQ results, then you should throw away everything else ever claimed to be true from psychology. And there used to be a lot of real psychology. Nowadays it's fake, but there used to be a lot of real psychology. Okay, so anyways, that's just the way it is. Okay, Jeffrey Miller continues. Across cultures, women always show higher average scores than men on agreeableness and conscientiousness, but a lower average score on stability. Okay, now that's a personality test result there. And yeah, women try to be more agreeable, try to get along. Basically, women are kind of programmed to take care of babies. Why do we pretend that's not the truth? It's the truth. It's obviously the truth. Okay? I think a man, he's programmed to be able to survive. He's also programmed to be able to attract a woman. Attracting a woman and taking care of a kid are not the same thing. And that's why I think women are so emotional, is because they can be in tune with the children. And up until the modern era, women on average would have about 10 babies, and they'd spend their whole adult life pregnant or nursing. Okay, that's what they did. So they're good at it. And all this stuff about pretending they're like men, it's just not true. But that's also why they're emotional, like a kid is emotional and impulsive. That's why they got small shoulders. They can control that kid until the boy hits puberty. Then he goes off with the men. That's the way it's always been. But that's also why, some of the dating coaches like Alexander Grace will tell you, he'll say, if you give a man free time, like if I have a little bit of extra free time, like I have an interview that canceled, I'm going to try to write a book chapter that day. Okay, I'm going to do something that's part of my overall long-term goals. Whereas I think a lot of times women just waste time. And I think they're programmed to be that way. If you go on a dating app, here's what you'll see. The women will have a picture of themselves on vacation, a picture of themselves in a nice restaurant or doing something fun. They're always showing their pictures to their friends, showing off, look how great my life is. Aren't you lucky to be my friend? I never ever heard a woman criticize her vacation or the restaurant she went to. She always wants to show off her pictures and show everybody what a great life she has. So she wants to show off, but she wants to do it indirectly, like saying, look what a great life I have. See how lucky you are to be my friend. Whereas a man's more likely to show off and say, I'm strong. I can bench press 400 pounds or something, okay? So he's more direct about it. But that's also why I think women waste all that time and they spend all that money on traveling because they just want to have fun. They're not that focused on a goal. But you say, now why do I think that's a good thing for a woman? Because if you put me in charge of a bunch of kids, I would go in a room and start reading a book, and who knows what would happen to the kids. I would neglect them, okay? Let's just be honest. I mean, I could do it for a day or two, but I would not be able to take care of a bunch of kids. I would go crazy. I just don't care about kids, all right? Whereas a woman, she's going to talk to the kids. She'll play a game with them. She'll interact with them. A man, we like our own kids, but we really don't care. I never held a baby until... like I had my own kids. Like if somebody wanted to give me a baby before I had my own kids, I'd be like, get away from me. It's going to piss on me. I had no interest in it. Whereas a young woman, before she's had her own baby, she wants to hold a baby, talk about a baby. She's getting ready for the time when she has a baby someday. Okay, continuing here. Jeffrey Miller. General intelligence, or the IQ test, is the best studied, best established trait in psychology. Higher intelligence predicts higher average success in every domain of life, including school, work, money-making, mating, parenting, physical health, and mental health. Ironically, bright people with low agreeableness, they often make the best creative contributions in the arts and sciences because they want to leave their mark on the world, but they don't care much what others consider to be correct. Yeah, I think smarter people, they're more likely to be nonconformist because they see things their own way, they're confident in their own decisions, and they're also tired of being rejected for not conforming, so they have a little bit of a resentment of conformity. Okay, let's see. The traits that best predict social status are intelligence, conscientiousness, and extroversion. Being social. Okay, then also people are good at trying to pick a mate, somebody to breed with, and they want that person to be healthy and to be competent, and they'd like them to be attractive. Youth, health, fertility, and fitness are actually hard to fake because people have evolved for thousands of years to be very discerning. Yeah, we're pretty good at telling how old somebody is. Okay, let's see. Our perceptual systems have evolved the greatest sensitivity and accuracy in the tasks that are most important to our social and reproductive success. Assessing others' physical qualities were among the most critical of them. Okay? That's why, a woman with a narrow waist, that means she's fertile. In general, that's what it meant to our ancestors. She got a big belly, that meant she was pregnant or she was a grandma. Okay? So that makes her unattractive. That's why men, we can't help it. We're not attracted to fat women. We're just not. There's nothing a fat woman could do that would make herself attractive to me. She just can't. I mean, I could like being friends with her, talking to her, but I would not want to sleep with her. That's why a woman, needs to get a bit of that hourglass figure. We like what's feminine about them because it's different than us. Okay? Jeffrey Miller continues, intelligent adults learn that maintaining one's physical appearance is an effective way of broadcasting one's personality traits. And I've seen that too. The more smarter the person, the more likely they are, in general, to maintain their physical health as they get older. There's plenty of exceptions. Jordan Peterson, social and emotional intelligence are not real. You cannot reliably test for them. Jordan Peterson, people say they don't believe in IQ, but then you can ask them, would you rather have a baby with an IQ of 65 or 165? An IQ of 65 will likely never be able to learn how to read. If you're trying to build a singing choir, then it's helpful to select people with nice voices. If you're trying to select a group of people who will be successful in a university, then high IQs are helpful. If something enables you to make accurate predictions, then it probably is a real measurement. Jobs for people with IQ less than 85 are rare. Some organizations, large organizations, have a lower limit of IQ threshold for hiring of 83. There are hardly any jobs for people with IQs less than 85. A little more than 10% of the population has an IQ of less than 85 or less, okay? And the percentage of people with low IQs is increasing because the higher IQ people a lot of times don't have any children. I know lots of female doctors, they forgot to have kids. They were so busy getting their next degree or something, they forgot to have kids. And they're nice and they're pretty too, I know them. Okay? Top-notch performance tends to come from a high IQ, a hard worker, conscientious, motivated, stress-tolerant, can handle the bullshit, the stress, the pressure, persistent, perseverance, tenacious, well-taught, well-coached, reads a lot, competitive, in a society that values activity, verbally and financially. So anyways, those are some quotes and thoughts on IQ and intelligence. Hope you found that helpful.